Hey everybody. I don't know if you can hear me or not because I have not streamed in so long. I don't know if these things work or not. So bear with me here for a second. Uh, Monitor and output. Okay. That appears to be working. Um, hey, everything is broken garage. And yes, you can hear me. Thank you. So, um, anyway, let me take these things off. Oi, that's more comfortable. So, it's been a while. It's been a long while. Let me get some caffeine. Oh. Didn't really want to be well, I don't quite have the right desktop going here. Where is the right setting? Man, this is like, I've been really messing around with this. That's not it. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So, what have I been up to? Let's see. About a year ago, um, I doubled down on working on my game, Adventure, and pretty much stopped live streaming except for, you know, Old World Tech Friday Sunday edition now, so it's on every other Sunday. I don't. Is it the first and the second Sunday, or the second and the third Sunday, fourth Sunday, or whatever? Anyway, it's opposite of Retro Roundup. So if you care to listen to us talk about some topic, because we've decided that that format needs to have at least a topic to talk about instead of it just being oh, you know, grouchy old man shakes fist at cloud, as Trina would say, which is my thing on Saturday mornings. So we review ice cream. Let's talk about rice. Anyway, OWTF Sunday edition. Yes, ice cream. Oh, old man shakes fist at OBS. Hey, Billgoats. Good morning. How are things in the great white north? So, I imagine these are the darkest of times around your parts. So anyway, like I was saying, it's been about a year, other than a few sporadic instances. And I was working on Adventure, and you know, I had this goal of being ready for VCF Midwest to be able to sell box sets, and I made it. I managed to get done in time. Um, but that sacrificed a lot of streaming time, things like that. Cold this morning. We had a snowstorm last night. We had freezing rain yesterday. Um, so no white Christmas for us. 8 degrees centigrade. So that would be, let's see, in Freedom Eagles, that is above freezing. That's not terrible. So that's what, 38 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that? 40? No. I don't know. Anyway, that's t-shirt weather in Michigan. T-shirts inside the house, not outside. Anyway, Um, sun still isn't rising until after 9 a.m. But when the sun is out, every hour is the golden hour. Yeah, I imagine that looks, yeah, 37 degrees-ish. So, 46 degrees. Somewhere in that range of not t-shirt. So, uh, for some of you who have not seen me recently, you may have noticed that the visage has been trimmed. So, I just got tired of dealing with the hair, and that's sort of my superpower. I can generate hair. So, anyway, oh, God, my hands hurt today. I always I like this mug. It's very heavy, but it's got a rim on it that keeps me from dipping my mustache in the. I mean, it doesn't have the, the cutout for a mustache thing, but it does tend to keep me from dipping my mustache in the coffee, which my mustache doesn't need coffee. I need it internally, so that's why I use those mugs. Anyway, so I got Adventure out. I did do a recent update to it. Somebody wanted to be able to run it without using up 700 megabytes of disk space. And because the audio files and everything take up a lot of space. So I did a modification so that it'll run the audio from from a CD. And of course had to tweak the config and stuff like that. So if you install just of course this version's not really packaged or anything, so it's not available. But anyway, if you install it to your computer, because you still have to run the HyperCard stack on, it has to be writable. I didn't try creating a standalone that didn't require writing. Future one maybe. Anyway, you can copy just the stack and stacks, I should say. There's multiple stacks, and the configuration file and stuff to your local computer and leave all the audio on the CD. As long as there's no media subdirectory underneath the stack, it'll ask you where's the media, and you can point to your CD-ROM drive, and it'll run that way. It's a little slower because it's got to go back and forth, and your disk spins the entire time you're playing the game, but it does work, and that helps people that if you got a Power PC or a PowerBook with a CD-ROM drive, and you want to be able to use it without having to take up a lot of disk space. It works pretty well. Yes, this would be a good ale mug. I've gotten to the point now where I'm not drinking anymore. Occasionally I'll have some scotch, but it's like every other month maybe I'll have like a finger or two. I've got a bottle of Guinness that's been in my fridge for almost 2 years now that I haven't drank. So it's the diabetic injectables tend to reduce your desire for alcoholic beverages. So anyway, but it hasn't done anything for my caffeine addiction or my speech. So now that near beer, what's the point? So Adventure's done for the most part, and I do want to work on another game. So I did come up with an idea that I thought was kind of unique, sort of. And then I did a search of software that's out there, and it's not unique. There's many games that work this way, and even the same topic. The Last Train, I think, is the name of the game. I'm going to have to go to the web and look it up. The Last Train. Oh, it's a TV series. That's not what I'm looking for. I guess I have to put game after it. Game. Anyway, the guy that created. Oh, shoot. Man, I am just, Saturday mornings are really rough on my brain. Um, Prince of Persia. The guy who developed that used a technique called rotoscoping for the action so that you've got very similar to, human bodily movements and stuff like that. Well, this game predates that, and this was the only game that this game house released. Maybe it's not The Last Train. Now I gotta find it. Man, I really hate it when I'm not prepared for a stream. You notice that I have a question mark for what the topic is today. Let me try this. So it's set in just before World War II. Or World War I. The game that I found, and it's on the Orient Express. There's a board game. Oh, The Last Express. Yes, okay, The Last Express is the name of the game. You can actually get it on Steam. It only costs $1.39. You can also download the 3 CDs and play it on your Power PC or something like that. So they dumped millions into this game. And it's got, the storyline is this guy is asked by his friend to join him on the train, and he finds him dead. So he, of course, naturally decides he's going to impersonate his dead friend, and it's a murder mystery and things like that happens on 1914 Orient Express. And it was award winning. It was very well done. Well, I had an independent idea. I didn't even know this game existed. Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, or Perot, or those kinds of mysteries. I thought, well, that's an awesome setting for a game, because all your the characters, the non-playing characters and stuff are, they have to stay on the train and all this kind of stuff. And you could do a Inspector Perot style investigator and have an assistant for that investigator. I know that's not how Perot worked, but anyway. And then have subplots and all this stuff. And your role is you're the investigator, and you've got to solve the murder mystery and figure out who did it. There's bonus things you can get for the side plots and things like that. So maybe you're able to figure out the means of the murder, but you can't figure out who. So you get some points for that. But if you figure out who, when they did it, why they did it, and all these side quests, you maximize your thing. I don't have a studio. I have a budget of tens of dollars, so I'm not going to do a rotoscoped thing that costs a stupid amount of money. I do want to do a HyperCard stack, and it's going to be point and click, like Pajama Sam and all those games. And there won't be animation in it, but there will be some 1-bit art for the train, and when you enter through a kind of like an adventure game, when you enter through it, the scene changes. Maybe I'll do some simple 3 or 4 frame animation or something like that, so that it's got a little bit going on it. But the goal really is in this game is to make sure it'll work on a classic Mac. I don't want to require a power PC, so it's going to be a challenge to come up with the game mechanics and stuff for this, so that it doesn't suck processor. Clue, Mr. Green in the kitchen with the candlestick. So, there's any number of Clue clones out there, but similar to that, but with subplots, and you can things happen. There's new characters that are introduced because they come onto the train. Maybe you could have like a not helpful sergeant or investigator from Budapest or something like that, who gets on the train, and you find out that he's actually a Russian spy, or so there's lots of things you can do. One of the nice things, January 1st, Agatha, one of the first Miss Marple Agatha Christie book comes out of copyright and is public domain. So that's kind of interesting. That means somebody could take that book and that storyline and create Miss Marple and Zombies edition or something like that, and do something creative with that. But my idea is to not copy something else. Now, it's a well-worn trope, the investigator, the murderer, Mr. Green in the kitchen with the candlestick, that kind of thing. So how to do the storyline so that it's a little unique and isn't quite as predictable as I don't know, what's that investigation series, Sister whatever. It's on BritBox. It's made in the UK, where it's extremely obvious who did what, murder mystery stuff. So that's the idea. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm not going to use anything from the last game. So even though it's similar in structure to an adventure, the idea is to investigate it and do something new. Now, I have had suggestions like, hey, if you use this game engine, you'd be able to produce stuff a lot faster, and there is a lot out there for creating your own adventure games or point and click or doing stuff in a modern thing. And you can produce games pretty quickly. That's not the point behind this. Here at Eric's Edge, we reinvent the wheel. So my whole plan here is to write it from scratch so that I can investigate and learn how to do stuff. Murder He Road, a train mystery. Yeah. So I've got the outline of kind of a rough plot. I'm going to do the 1890s version of the Orient Express. That was its early heyday. And it's interesting. I'm interested in history. I read the first 500 years of the Byzantine Empire as for pleasure at one point, which is a very interesting book if you read it. It's very thick too. So I like history and alternative history and stuff like that. So it's going to be based on the Orient Express and that time period of the late 1890s. It's not, the height of the Express was probably in the 20s. The Orient Express, started in, I think, the 1880s and, went on from there. It didn't make it all the way to Constantinople. initially. You had to actually take it, it terminated on uh, whatever the body of water is there, and it would go from there to, hey Joe, it would go from there by boat to Constantinople. Eventually, they extended the line all the way there. You also could go into Greece. So there's a lot of possibilities here for doing something like that. Um, would I do something weird like a steampunk version with blimps? No, I'm probably not going to go that weird. But I could. Um, I did have an idea for a game that would be based on a mech war kind of a thing, but do it steampunk. Um, but I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I am not setting a deadline. It'll probably take me a couple of years to produce this thing. I'm not going to get crazy about it and kill myself like I did this last year with Adventure. So I am not setting a deadline. In fact, I worked on it for a couple of weeks last month, just kind of outlining what I'm sketching it out. One of the things I found from Adventure that was helpful is writing a story and then using that script, if you will, to write the game. With Adventure, I started out with writing the game first and then said, oh, I want to do this now, and rewriting and, just over and over again. Well, what I want to do is kind of write the script, have an idea of how I want the mechanics to work, and then build to support the script. So that's one thing. What have I been doing lately? So there is, and I didn't bring the book down with me. There's a book. It's the HyperCard. Yeah, I gotta go find it. HyperCard 2.2, the book. Yes. Oh, there's an errata. Sounds like a Pokemon. Anyway. Ooh, I wonder if there's an error in the code that I'm trying to do. Anyway, there's a chapter in this book. Let me see if I can bring up the book. I don't know if this is available online or not. Oh, it's HyperTalk 2.2. 2.2, the book. By Dan Winkler, Scott Kamens, and Joanne Devoto. It was published in '94, and so far it contains the only reference to a feature of HyperCard where you can do custom translation of HyperTalk. And the idea behind it is like say you're French and you want the keywords that are in HyperTalk for, if, then, else, repeat, function. Well, function's probably French. Anyway, all of that to be translated into French so that you could write in your native language in HyperTalk. So they had this resource, sort of like an external command or external function, called a Wild Talk Translator. And you could program HyperCard so that when you went into the HyperTalk editor, it would take your English HyperTalk script, because it only executes the English version of HyperTalk, and translate it into whatever language your translator did and display that in your script control so that you could see it in French. And then it would, when you saved your script, it would translate it back into English and store it that way. And all you had to do was set your language to whatever that translator language is. So you could say set the language to French, for example, and it would do that. It also would do things like grab what's in the message box and translate it for you, because you can execute commands from the message box. Whatever. So, kind of a neat thing. I don't know of any Wild Talk translators that are available out there. I haven't been able to find any. But in an appendix of the HyperTalk 2.2, the book, they give an example of Pascal code for doing two simple translators. One is a French translator, and the other one was kind of an interesting idea. In HyperTalk, you have single line comments. You do dash dash and then text, and that makes a comment. They don't have a block comment control. Somebody, in this book, they wrote a block comment control to do Pascal style comments. So you do curly brace, bunch of text, close curly brace, and that would be a comment. So the translator would take the block Pascal style comment and translate it into dash dash bang, dash dash bang, dash dash bang. And when you translated it back into the block code, it looked for dash dash bang as the marker for it. So you had a custom comment and would say, oh, this must be a block comment, and then put in a block comment for you. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I don't work in Pascal. Really don't like Pascal. So I decided I would build a translator of my own. The only reference I can find is this freaking chapter in this book. There's nothing in the developer network for it. In fact, at the beginning of the chapter of the book, it says, this little known feature of HyperCard, blah, blah, blah. So, hey, Steve. And Millennium Max, good morning. So I'm going to interrupt myself, as usual, and just go through and welcome everybody. So everything is Broken Garage, greetings. And Billgoats is here. And who else? Francois. Good morning. So I'm gonna mess with. I'm gonna greet you in Italian, buongiorno, instead of French, bonjour. That's really stretching my language skills. Let's see, Joe's Computer Museum, Millennium Max, and Steve Mac 84. So good morning, everybody. I am going to try to get back on that bicycle and do the Saturday morning streams again. I'm not going to be able to stay on very late today because I got guests coming over later and I need to do some cooking. But anyway, where was I? I was talking about, anyway, the Wild Talk translator. Wildcard was the original name for HyperCard, but there was already, that was being used for some other software, so they couldn't use that. The creator four-letter combination for HyperCard stacks is Wild, so that's why it's named that. Yeah, bicycles for the mind. Yeah. I thought one of the things that frustrates me about writing HyperTalk script is that there's no IntelliSense. IntelliSense is something that crude forms of it were developed early in the. I think there was something early as the early 80s, maybe even the late 70s, and the Microsoft kind of ran with it. Visual Basic had it where it would pop up and tell you, when you're typing in a command, offer up suggestions for how to complete the command, things like that. Well, one of the aspects of HyperTalk that frustrates me is that it does automatic indentation for you. That's nice. But it doesn't do code completion of any kind. So if you type in a repeat statement, what would be nice for someone like me is that it automatically drops down 2 lines, puts end repeat, and then positions your cursor in the blank line in between, indented in, ready for you to type what the contents of the repeat block is. Same for if then else, and any of the other block statements. So I thought I could leverage this translator, because one of the events that fires off for the translator is not just when you load the script and unload the script that it fires. It'll also do it if you set a certain setting when you tab, because tabbing in HyperTalk editor causes it to do the indentation for you automatically. Or if you hit return on the end of a line, it'll actually fire off the translator if you set the custom indentation script. So you could imagine if you were doing some kind of funky insertion thing or extending HyperTalk with extra code features or something like that, you might have to do custom indentation. And they gave you a mechanism for it. You have to set a flag, a bit flag, to do it as part of the block that's transferred or passed to your WildTalk translator and then is returned. And it contains several things. It's got the source in a handle, and then there's a destination handle for what your translator does. There's the current selection location, which is important, so that you know that you're right after you've entered repeat or if or whatever. There is a couple other things. There's some 16 long int array that you can use to maintain state between calls in your translator. So there's some stuff there that's passed back and forth that you could use. There's also a set of flags. Only one flag, one bit is used, enabled. There's also a reserved word. If you set the 0th bit on that flag, it does custom indentation. Now your WildTalk translator has to handle indentation for it, but it means that it'll fire your code off every time you hit return or tab. So what I did was I modified the code, or wrote code that would say, oh, look at the current selection location. What's the previous line? Does it say repeat? So it starts with that keyword. In HyperTalk, all the keywords are the first word of the statement, the expression, like put and whatever. If it's repeat, look to see if there's an end repeat that matches the indentation or lines up with the repeat, so it can actually scan through the code and say, oh, there's no matching end repeat, and puts it in for you. So as soon as you hit return, it pops that in and then positions you in the right place to do the block for the return. It's a crude form of IntelliSense. Now, there's no user interface where you can have dialogues that pop up and ask you and stuff. There is another feature of HyperTalk where you can create a custom editor and completely replace the editor that's called. And it's got to support all this stuff. So you could build your own custom editor that has IntelliSense and does dialogues and pop-up things and stuff, but that's for a future thing. So anyway, my C programming skills are ancient. I worked mostly in DOS, in C. I did C# and all that later, but I never worked on a Mac. So I started with, I'm going to translate this Pascal into C, put it in the code, and see if I can get it to work. And I worked on it a little bit here and there for a while. I actually got the frickin' thing to work. on PowerPC. Later versions of HyperCard supported doing PowerPC based resources, so they would execute faster. And you could package resources as both FAT and 68K. So I surprisingly got this code to work in, but I can't get it to work in 68K. I'm struggling with getting the code to work properly there. So I'm going to show you if I can. Nope, that's not the right one. Yeah, there's my messy bench. Yep, that's not what I want. Oh, that'll work. No, that's not going to work either. Jeez, Eric. I've really messed around with this stuff. I need to clean things up. So... Oh, I know what was going on. I reused my Elgato capture thing, and it's no longer showing. So let me... Sorry about that. Let me put it in studio mode so I can mess around with the input. Come on, Eric. Yeah, this is because it's been a long time since I've actually shared captured stuff or anything like that. I mean, the game capture is here, but it's not displaying. Why are you not working? Let me look at the properties. Okay, it's still not working. Why are you not working? Why, oh why, is this such a pain? Uh, you know what? we're just not going to show code today. I will do a future stream on it. Yeah, it's getting late anyway. So the idea is that I want to do IntelliSense for that, and I did get the code working on PowerPC. Having some trouble getting it to work properly in 68K, and it's mostly because I just don't know what the frick I'm doing in that environment, so I'll figure it out. I'll probably post the code here and beg for help at some point. But I did get it working where I wasn't blowing chunks every time I ran it, things like that. Debugging that was a royal pain in the butt. But I did finally figure out how to get I'm using Code Warrior Pro 4 because that's a development environment that supports both PowerPC and 68K. It's kind of the sweet spot for that. And I found a video where somebody showed how to do X command for HyperCard, and they went through setting up the development environment, so I used that. But getting it to compile a 68K resource that works is proving to be a challenge. I even went into ThinkC6 and tried to do it native from there, and that didn't work at all either. So I'm just not sure what I'm doing wrong. Probably something stupid, I'm sure. So why do the code completion part is kind of neat. Where do I want to take it from there? One of the things I want to do is build a linter. If you're a C programmer from the Unix days, you probably know what a lint utility is. And they're called linters. It was part of like awk and lex and stuff like that, the Unix tools for programming. And what it does is it goes through, it can do things like it can format your code. Let's say you're required to use Kernighan and Ritchie brace placement, but you're like me and you don't like Kernighan and Ritchie where the first curly brace goes at the end of the line. I like them to line up with sort of the Pascal begin and end where the curly brace is right underneath the beginning of the block, and then it lines up and ends at the same column. But let's say you work for some guy who's draconian about that kind of stuff. Well, a linter can reformat your code so that it follows the standard without you having to do it. So you can just lint back and forth to whatever you want. A linter will also do things like look for uninitialized pointers or other language things. So it was sort of the precursor to IntelliSense and stuff where you could pass through this filter and a linter would say, warning, you're doing this. When IDEs started to get developed, the compiler warnings and things would look for things like that too. But a linter is something that predates all that. You could do, let's say, one of the challenges in HyperTalk is that you can initialize and instantiate a variable, a local variable, just by using it. And everybody knows if you're using an interpreted language that style of thing leads to you fat-fingered the name of a variable and you don't notice it, and now you can't figure out why your code's not working. A linter can look at a style. Let's say you force yourself to always instantiate local variables at the top of a function or a handler, and you always assign something to it. So put empty into variable name. So you could have a linter that would look to see if you're doing that. Global declarations. I stick a lowercase g in front of, it's kind of the Hungarian notation for things for globals. So if I've got a global variable that I'm using in a HyperTalk stack script, you have to say global variable name inside the top of whatever handler or function you're using for it to access that global. You forget to do that. Now you've instantiated a local variable and it's going to use it. So you could have a linter that says anything that's got a G in front of it is a global variable. If you don't have the global instantiation at the top of your function, that's probably wrong. It could also look to see, is it declared as a global somewhere? Because typically I will declare all my global variables somewhere in the stack when it loads the stack, so that I know they're already declared as empty, but so I'll do that just so that I've got a handle on it. Well, a linter could go through your script and say, here's all the globals that are declared, make sure that they're being declared properly in your script. That kind of thing could be added to this WildTalk translator, so it will do linting as you go. And then it could inject comments in your code, your script, as you're working, saying, is this supposed to be a global? Or undeclared variable use, or just stuff like that, where it would drop text inside there. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it, just to build something like that. Oh, yeah, see you, Billgoats. Thanks for dropping in. So, we're at 9:49. I usually stick to about an hour. That's what I've been working on. Trying to teach this old brain that's stuck in DOS-C. There's layers on top, for C# and all that. But really, my brain works in old Unix and DOS-C. Trying to get into Macintosh programming in C. I will probably never work in Pascal. I just can't stand that language. I had to take, it was the teaching language at the time when I was in college, and as soon as I hit the C course, that was like, oh, not doing Pascal. I hate string handling in Pascal. Is stupid. You declare a string and you're stuck with 255 characters for a string. That, for a teaching language, sure, but for professional work, what a pain in the ass. Oh yeah, there is something else I wanted to talk about. Let's see if I can do this without destroying it. So for Marchintosh this year, I don't know if I can get this close enough to put it in the camera. Woo. Okay, I'm just going to talk about it. You really can't see it too well. I bought this Asante micro Asante print, and what it does is allows you to connect 8 local talk devices to your Ethernet network. It's not supposed to support doing computers on your local talk network itself. It's only supposed to be for printers. Asante had a bridge that they built that would support computers too. I haven't tried it. I might as well throw a computer on there and see if I can do file sharing with it or not. Anyway, but the long and short of it is, I got this thing with my I've got another one here. Hang on. I'm not going to dig it out. Anyway, I did one of Joe's Nether net adapters that gives you like a phone net connector, but it uses an Ethernet cable. Because I've got phone net connectors and stuff, but I only tried one of them and it didn't work. So I'm using these Ethernet ones that are completely bare and not in a box or anything. Anyway, I got the whole thing to work. So my image writer with my Scribbler, image Scribbler card is on my network and shareable. And then I wasted 6 hours trying to get it to work in Linux and gave up on that because the current version of Lint, or not Lint, Mint, Linux Mint, does not have um, uh, Netatalk 4 packaged with it. It's stuck on 3 still. And trying to build that and to get it to work properly or to go back to 2 so that it's got the Apple Talk stuff in it. Oh, well, what a pain in the butt. I gave up on trying to get that to work. So, hey, good morning, Gut Bob. Um, anyway, so I gave up on getting my Linux box to print to an image writer printer. Maybe I'll pick it up some other time, but it's really not something I care whether it works or not. But this means for Global Talk this April, I'm actually prepared to support a printer. Yeah, I tried to get 2X working, but I just there's some things in Linux that um, are great, and it just works out of the box. This is not one of them. So you can help me get 2X working if I want. Yeah, maybe I will. I might go back to doing that. So, but anything that's networking in Linux, setting up, like Snow is a great emulator. I've been playing around with that lately, and they just got networking enabled in it. It's in the, you know, the daily build. Trying to get Linux Mint to allow the natting to work is just a pain in the ass. So you did have to recompile the kernel for it. Oh God. So yeah, I don't use Windows anymore. I'm just using Linux now, and for the most part, everything's working. Don't use Flatpak. I still have to fix that. Flatpak works in theory. In practice, it's a pain in the butt. For me, anyway. OBS, every time I connect to the cameras, I've got to type in my, I've got to sudo it so that I can give it access to the cameras. There's a Flatpak configuration utility so that you can change all the security settings and stuff. Doesn't matter. If you give it complete access to everything, it still requires you to put in your password. For a desktop computer at home, that's a pain in the ass. So, oh, someone recycled it. That's awesome. Drummer 150. So, yeah, I got a couple of image writers. This is the only one that I've got working, and I got it working a couple of years ago, and the WD-40 thing on new old stock ribbons worked great. When I use Linux, I prefer to just use one package manager. Yeah, I made the mistake of going down that path. Some Flatpak stuff works just fine. I forgot if I'm using Discord native or Flatpak, but OBS was a pain in the butt. The other thing that was kind of annoying to set up was I use Orca Slicer for 3D printing. I had to use a daily or a nightly build of it to get it to render properly. The stable release didn't work, so I haven't upgraded it because it's working and I'm not going to break it. I just recently doubled the RAM in my computer because I wanted to play around with some on-premise AI stuff and see how, unfortunately I got another 5 years of work life left in me, so I have to get familiar with the AI stuff because they, upper management where I work drank the Kool-Aid. So the good thing is that it's state government, so they're slow to adopt anything. But here we are, and I manage people that are going to have to use it, so I have to be familiar with it. It does have its uses. I'm just morally opposed to them, the companies that build their AI using open source and the entire internet for to build their matrix, their model. I know that they're using the fair use provisions, but of copyright to do it. But I still think that that's like, oh, because it's a company that's doing it, they can get away with it. It's fair use. But if you want to do fair use for your own stuff, well, that's different. There's standards and double standards, and this is a double standard. Anyway, so I don't like AI for that reason. As a technology, it can be an assistant if you're smart and you know what you're doing. I've poked around at it to help me rewrite communications at work. And I took a document that was in one particular format for, unfair use. I took a document that was written as a procedure document and converted it to user stories. So, and it did a half decent job at it, and did save me time. So, yes, there's I could see valid uses for them, but I still go right back to, how was your model trained? It was trained by raping the internet. So, yeah, it's a great search engine. Large language models are useful. They also hallucinate constantly. And if you're an experienced software developer and you want to use it as a search engine to suggest solutions to problems, perfectly valid use for one. If you're going to use it as a crutch to develop code, you're asking for trouble. And I could see, when I started working as a programmer, you were fairly close to the metal. I learned assembly. I never worked in it in production. I did higher level languages like C. But you had to understand how it worked to a point. And over the decades, layer upon layer has been added to this. And it's not necessarily bad. You can become a software developer and not really understand anything about how a processor works and all that. You don't have to learn what big endian and little endian is. You don't have to, understand what a byte is. You can do business data, forms over data development, web development, whatever, and not really understand anything about how any of it works underneath the covers. Nothing wrong with that. There is a place for anybody to learn how to do stuff. Would you be a better programmer if you did understand all that stuff underneath? Yeah, for sure. But not everybody has the time or the patience to do that. You're going to end up with people that learn how to develop in an environment where they don't really understand the code they're doing, and they don't have senior staff around to lead them. Now, I realize in a lot of commercial settings, if you're a developer, you're on your own. Nobody's going to mentor you or help you because that's not, you're supposed to know your craft already. And you get into the usual, I need a job, but I don't have experience, but you need experience for the job kind of scenario. But there are organizations where they do mentoring and you have peer reviews and things like that. State government, for example, where I work, there is actual mentoring and things. Well, once that generation of developers is gone, you're going to have script kiddies with programming skill that are working on your taxes or your program or services that you need. And it's going to be based on crappy code. I mean, it already is based on crappy code. It would be crappier code. And nobody will understand how to fix it. And, you know, maybe I'll have a retirement job. But again, as a search engine and a way to suggest creative solutions for stuff, it might be way too creative and it doesn't really understand what you're doing. Hey, JDMCS, how are you? Well, it's 10 o'clock. I'm sorry. I do have to go. I got other stuff to do. So, and my coffee is almost gone. So, I want to thank everybody for coming. And I will be getting back into doing these videos. And once I get OBS set back up so I can share stuff, you know, I'll be sharing code and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, one other thing. My Christmas present this year. Oh, so I'm going to be doing some oscilloscope learning. I've got an Apple IIc that's got bad memory chips, I think, and I need to learn how to figure out where they are. And I don't know how to use a oscilloscope, so here's to learning how to do that. Thanks for joining. See y'all on the flip side. Where's the outro? Okay, bye. Oh, transition.